The morning smells like sawdust and ashes, that dry, acrid scent that clings to canvas and memories. It creeps under the thick velvet curtain of my caravan and curls around my lungs before I even open my eyes. There's no rooster here, only the mechanical cough of the half-man janitor starting the generator, and the rattle of old bones in newer bodies. They think owning a freak show is all horror and spectacle. They picture me counting money behind a red curtain while some two-headed boy eats a raw fish on stage for the delight of drunk townsfolk. And they're not entirely wrong, but they miss the rhythm, the strange order of disorder, the quiet dignity that lives somewhere behind the deformity. I rise from my bed, the springs wheezing like a tired elephant. My boots are cold. My bones, colder. The floor creaks beneath my weight, not because it's old, though it is, but because it remembers too much. This wagon used to belong to Madame Stryga, the snake woman. She died in it during a heat wave, and no matter how much paint I slap on the walls, it always smells a little bit like her perfume and rotting lemons. Outside, the freaks are stirring. Carmen, the armless contortionist, is brushing her teeth with her feet again. She's elegant in her routine, almost meditative. Her tent flaps open just wide enough for the world to envy her discipline but never pity her shape. Across from her, the fire eater is coughing blood into a handkerchief he still calls lucky. He's down to his last lung, but he says the show must burn on. I believe him. The twins, stitched at the hip, separated in mind, are arguing about whose turn it is to wear the shared coat. Their voices rise in tandem, but never agree. One wants tea. The other wants whiskey. I pretend not to hear them. My name? It doesn't matter. In this place, I'm only ever boss. Sometimes, sir. Sometimes the devil who pays. I don't perform. I manage. I schedule, argue, promote, clean blood, stitch wounds, and occasionally bury what can't be repaired. They come to me for money, sometimes medicine, sometimes mercy. I give what I can, take what I must, and try not to think about it too hard. I make my rounds in silence. Each tent I pass has a story, and a smell. The bearded lady's tent smells like lilacs and rage. The dog boy's like wet fur and loneliness. And the giantess? She doesn't even live in a tent. She sleeps standing, like a horse, under the awning by the trucks. Says lying down gives her dreams she can't control. Most of them weren't born into this. That's the part no one wants to believe. They think freaks emerge from the womb already doomed. But no, freaks are made. Some by accident. Some by war. Some by heartbreak so heavy it bends the body. Some just never had a choice. But the audience doesn't need to know that. The audience wants a clean story. Born strange, lived strange, died strange. Anything more human, and the illusion crumbles. By 7, the first fire is lit for breakfast. Bacon crackles in the pan of the blind cook, who isn't really blind, just terribly nearsighted. Still, he stirs with the confidence of a man who's lost count of his fingers. And we let him cook because he believes it's the one thing he does better blind. I sip coffee that tastes like regret and reheated regret. The sun's already too bright. The day ahead, long and filled with the fragile egos of living curiosities. There's a performance tonight. Every night there is. And no two are ever the same because no two breakdowns are ever predictable. I run a business. But more than that, I run a kingdom of the unwanted. A republic of rejection. And the strange thing is, they're the most loyal citizens I've ever known. The world may not want them. But here, under this cracked big top, in these frayed red curtains and wax-painted smiles, they're stars. They are worshipped, gasped at, adored. Even if it only lasts for 15 minutes between popcorn spills and cigarette burns. And me? I just make sure the lights stay on. That the bearded lady gets her gin. That the twins don't kill each other. That the fire eater doesn't die mid-performance. And maybe, if I'm lucky, that no one looks too closely at the man behind the curtain. Because if they do, they might see the biggest freak of all. Stick around, because by the end of today, you'll see why the circus never sleeps, and why its heart beats loudest in the dark. By mid-morning, the air changes. The scent of bacon fades, replaced by grease paint, glue, and the sour tang of sweat soaked into velvet costumes. Rehearsals begin in a haze of sun and circus dust, and the performers stretch muscles that shouldn't bend, vocal cords that shouldn't work, and minds that shouldn't be burdened with this much memory. The bearded lady is in a foul mood. She usually is on Tuesdays. Claims it's because her beard curls wrong when the humidity shifts. But really, it's because her old lover, the tattooed priest, left on a Tuesday 15 years ago and never came back. She keeps her trailer spotless, scrubs the linoleum floors with lavender bleach, wears gloves while ironing her corsets, and files complaints to me every third day about inappropriate ogling from the audience. I tell her, again, we don't sell dignity here. We rent the illusion of danger, the myth of taboo. She glares at me, sips her tea with her pinky extended like a loaded gun, and says she's thinking of shaving. I tell her the beard brings in an extra $200 a week. She says so would topless fire juggling. She's not wrong. I approve the latter for Saturday night. In the center tent, our strongest man, who is barely 5'3", lifts an anvil over his head with one hand while sipping lemonade through a straw with the other. His act is 80% illusion, 20% spinal damage. But he insists on doing it raw. No pulleys, no trick weights. He says he was born in a coal mine and raised by his grandmother who could lift a horse. I've never asked for proof. Part of the job is not asking. The dog boy whimpers in the corner, chewing a shoe he found behind the bleachers. He isn't mentally challenged, just committed. Once, he spoke perfectly fluent Spanish. Now he growls on command and won't look you in the eye unless you call him Rover. The kids love him. Adults aren't sure. I don't push him. Let the boy be a dog. It's the only time he's ever looked happy. But happiness is in short supply this week. 2 days ago, the tent inspector from county came by, said we were in violation of 3 codes. 1 for fire hazard, 1 for animal containment, and 1, curiously, for the psychological welfare of staff. I told him our animals don't bite, our tent won't burn unless you bless it, and our staff is more stable than the city council. He handed me a citation anyway, smiled, and asked for comp tickets. I gave him front row seats and a flask of snake whiskey. He left laughing. I'm assuming we're safe for another 6 weeks. Backstage, the little giant, a performer with a pituitary disorder that left him child-sized but middle-aged, is tuning a violin he cannot play. It's part of his act. He stands on a stool, dressed like a maestro, and plays one shrill note while the human echo behind the curtain mimics a perfect symphony. The audience believes in miracles. I believe in acoustics, and in paying the echo double, he's the real genius. The thing is, no one comes to see talent. They come for contradiction. They come to feel normal by witnessing the opposite. They want to believe there's a world uglier than their own. Comforts them. They walk into our tent with their mortgages and divorces and addictions, and leave whispering about a man with no spine who dances ballet. We offer relief, not redemption. At 11 a.m., the albino twins break a prop again. It's the 7th time this month. They're not malicious, just careless. One of them is blind in the left eye and refuses to admit it. The other compensates by blinking too much. Together they juggle hatchets while quoting Greek poetry. I've warned them about safety. They say art isn't safe. I tell them lawsuits aren't artistic. They don't laugh. My maintenance man, a war veteran with no tongue and 3 fingers, patches the broken frame in silence. He hums through his nose, a strange sound, calming. The other performers trust him, even though he's never said a word. Some claim he's cursed. Others say he simply saw too much in Bosnia. I keep him on payroll and never ask questions. The fire eater tries a new kerosene blend and vomits behind the elephant pen. I dock him half pay. He agrees without protest. That's how he apologizes, by not dying. By noon, the circus settles into a lull, a false peace. The performers disappear into shadows, costumes rustling, grease paint smearing, mirrors cracking slightly from the heat. I walk the grounds, inspect the ropes, check the pegs, kick the generators, the little things that keep the illusion spinning. In one tent, the skeleton woman knits sweaters for stray cats. In another, the human corkscrew is asleep inside a briefcase. The painted man is arguing with his own reflection, again, while the sword swallower tries to fish out a swallowed spoon from last night's dinner. This is the part of the day I like best. Before the crowds come. Before the screams and the gasps and the popcorn-drenched awe. This is when the freaks are just people, and I'm just a man who decided a long time ago that the edge of society is the most honest place to live. The world out there judges. The world in here applauds. But applause fades. And I know, deep down, that sooner or later, every circus burns. The question is, will it be from inside or out? Next comes the fire test, the blood audit, and the contracts. Because in this business, what kills you isn't the saw. It's the paperwork. You don't find your way into this world by accident. No one wakes up one morning and decides to manage a caravan of bearded women, wolf boys, fire breathers, and human pincushions. You get here because you were never really anywhere else to begin with. You drift into it the way some people drift into addiction. Slowly, with 1,000 justifications, until the tent closes around you like a second skin. I bought my first freak with inheritance money. She wasn't a performer. Not yet. Just a girl with skin so pale and translucent it glowed beneath candlelight. They called it a disorder. She called it a gift. The world wanted to lock her away. I built a stage instead. It wasn't about exploitation. Not in the beginning. It was about proving that even the world's rejects could command attention, could charge admission. But as time passed, I stopped seeing them as people and started seeing them as assets. A mistake I now spend my nights trying to unmake. The girl's name was Etta. She stayed with us 3 years before vanishing in the middle of the night. No note, no trace, just an empty cot and the lingering scent of magnolia and ghost stories. Some say she died. Others say she returned to the water, like some fairy tale creature who realized the land would never love her right. That was the first lesson. You can give them a stage, but you can't give them peace. Take Jeremiah, our human pincushion. He joined us from a psychiatric hospital in Indiana. Covered in scars, he made himself before realizing people would pay to watch him do it. He treats pain like a ritual, precise, rehearsed, oddly reverent. The crowd thinks it's masochism, but for Jeremiah it's prayer. Every needle is a confession. Every drop of blood, a memory he doesn't want. He tells me, in his soft, apologetic voice, that it's the only time he feels real. Then there's Elena, the bearded lady. She wasn't born with a beard. She grew it after a failed hormone treatment in the early 2000s. Her partner left. Her job fired her. She came to us with a duffel bag full of glitter and a heart full of unfinished sentences. She carved out her identity with rouge and razors, then dared the world to look away. Most nights, she outshines everyone else under the tent. Her voice, deep and operatic, silences children and commands drunks. She sings old Russian ballads no one understands, but everyone feels. She is not a joke. She is not a novelty. She is a monument to survival in sequins and sorrow. You want to know how I ended up here? I was raised behind a church that smelled like mildew and burning candles. My father sold holy water from the back of his van and claimed to be a retired exorcist. My mother believed in angels so fiercely that she screamed when she saw her own reflection. They were performers too, in their way, just poorer, less honest. I ran away at 16. Found a job cleaning vomit at a carnival. Slept in a storage crate next to the tilt-a-whirl. One night, the manager let me run the Sideshow mic. I told a story about a woman who coughed up birds when she lied. People believed me, laughed, applauded. That's when I realized stories matter more than truth. So I built my world around that idea. I didn't find freaks. I found stories with arms and legs and hunger. I offered them a home. They gave me a myth, and now I carry it like a ledger, every name, every scar, every lawsuit. But it's not all tragedy. Some of them are here because they love the stage. They love the gasps, the lights, the smell of roasted peanuts and mortal awe, like Sasha the contortionist. Born in a Moscow orphanage, survived a fire, performed ballet with her ribs wrapped in wire. When she twists herself into impossible knots on stage, you can hear the bones pop like old wood, and it's beautiful. Not because it's pain, but because it's her way of saying, I'm still here. I'm still bending. I didn't break. We don't call ourselves freaks anymore. At least not when we're alone. Among ourselves, we're the family. It's a dangerous word, heavy with promise. But it's the only word that fits when the rest of the world has turned its back. And yet, no matter how close we get, there's always distance. Between performer and audience. Between owner and owned. Between the person you are and the mask you wear when the lights go up. I try to blur those lines. I try to be fair. I listen. I protect. I pay on time. But sometimes I lie to them, to the public, to myself. Because this world only works if you believe in the fantasy. If you believe that the woman with the elephant skin is happy, or that the boy who eats light bulbs doesn't flinch when the glass cuts deep. The truth? They're not always happy. They flinch. They cry. They bleed backstage like everyone else. But here's the other truth. They choose to stay. They could leave. Some do. But most don't. Because out there, they're punchlines. In here, they're legends. We polish what the world throws away. We shine broken glass until it looks like starlight. That's what the freak show is. Not exploitation. Not cruelty. Not a mockery of nature. It's a declaration. We're still here. You can't look away. And maybe, just maybe, that scares you more than it scares us. Next comes rehearsal, disaster, and the impossible art of making monsters look like miracles. There's a moment in every day, just after the heat rises but before the sun turns cruel, when the big tent becomes a crucible. We call it rehearsal, but that's a generous word. It's more like a pressure test. How far can the body go before it collapses? How many times can a mind repeat the same contortion, the same risk, before it fractures? The air inside the canvas is thick with anticipation and sweat. The lights are off. No music yet. Just the scrape of props being dragged into place, the low mutter of performers adjusting routines, and the nervous shuffle of feet over dusty plywood. Today's rehearsal starts like most, late, tense, and haunted by last night's missteps. Sasha, the contortionist, is the first in the ring. Her bones click as she bends backward into a pose so unnatural it silences the crew. She holds it. 5 seconds. 10. Then collapses to her knees, gasping. She's pushing herself harder than usual. I know why. Last night, she slipped. Just a flicker of imbalance. A wobble in a pose she's done 1,000 times. The audience didn't notice, but she did. And that's worse. The unforgiving perfectionism of performers like her is what sells the illusion. But it's also what shortens their careers, and sometimes their lives. I tell her to rest. She ignores me. Next comes the strongman, who insists on adding a new routine involving a car axle, 2 bowling balls, and a rope made of human hair. I ask where he got the hair. He just smiles. I approve the stunt, but only with a safety line. Then the twins, the conjoined pair, one mute and the other manic, begin rehearsing their knife-throwing sequence. One throws, the other dances. They've been doing this act for 6 years without incident. But something's wrong today. The dancer stumbles. The knife lands an inch too far left. A button flies off. Everyone freezes. It's a tiny mistake. But in our world, tiny mistakes become tragedies in seconds. I call for a break. Some of the performers murmur. They hate breaks. Breaks mean thinking. Thinking means remembering. Most of them didn't come here to remember. They came to forget the sound of hospital machines, courtroom gavel strikes, pitying stares, or the silence of a house after being abandoned. The dog boy licks his wounds under the bleachers, surrounded by half-eaten lunch. The painted man, covered head to toe in mythological tattoos, paces in a circle, mumbling lines from a show he did in Berlin in 2003. His brain doesn't always stay in the present, but his muscles remember every movement. That's the thing with this place. Bodies remember what minds try to erase. I take a seat in the back, next to the tent's main pole, the one held together by duct tape, rusted bolts, and quiet desperation. From here I see everything. Not the tricks, not the poses, but the people underneath. The aching knees, the clenched jaws, the forced smiles rehearsed more than the acts themselves. Then it happens. Jeremiah, the human pincushion, enters with a new bit. He's been working on it for weeks. A timed sequence where he drives nails into a plank while delivering a monologue on guilt. It's beautiful, haunting, art really, until he misses his mark and hits his own hand. The nail goes straight through. First, there's no sound, just the dull thunk of iron on flesh. Then the blood. Then Jeremiah's breath, sharp, fast, rising. The tent goes quiet. The performers freeze. The illusion collapses. I rush forward, pull off my coat, wrap the wound. Jeremiah doesn't scream. He never does. He looks up at me with tears forming, but not from pain. I ruined it, he whispers. I tell him no, that it's salvageable, that we'll adjust the timing, change the staging, rebuild it tomorrow. He nods, ashamed, not of the wound, but of failing the art. That's what keeps me up at night. Not the injuries, but how much they blame themselves for being human. I send him to the medics trailer, a rusty unit we retrofitted with expired bandages and a near-retired nurse who smokes during surgery. The rehearsal ends early. I make the call, not because of the injury, but because I know the silence that followed did more damage than the nail ever could. The performers scatter, some to rest, some to sulk, some to drink, a few to rehearse alone, away from judgment. That's their therapy, repetition until redemption. As I walk back toward my wagon, I pass Elena. She stops me, says she wants to cut her solo tonight, says the mood's wrong. I tell her that's exactly why she has to do it. The show doesn't run on joy. It runs on catharsis. She nods, not in agreement, but in surrender. Before I reach the stairs to my wagon, I glance back at the tent. Empty now, still, quiet in a way that feels like waiting. Not peace, never peace, but anticipation. This is the most dangerous part of the day. Not the rehearsals, not the stunts, but the lull between rehearsal and performance. When doubts creep in, when hands shake, when the weight of being seen becomes almost unbearable. That's when the real freaks come out. Not the ones with the twisted spines or scaled skin, but the ones behind the makeup, beneath the applause, who wonder if this is really all they are. And still, when night falls, they return. Because the show, the sacred, cursed, magnificent show, must go on. Next, the final preparations, the rituals before the curtain rises, and the fragile illusion of immortality under the lights. The sun begins its descent, and the temperature shifts. Shadows stretch. The light grows crueler. Not the soft kind that flatters, but the sharp kind that exposes every crack, every wrinkle, every truth. It's the hour of transformation. This is when the real work begins. The performers disappear into their own corners of the world, into mirrors framed by crooked bulbs, into tents heavy with incense and mothballs, into silence thick enough to choke on. What they do in these next 90 minutes isn't physical preparation. That was handled hours ago. Now they're preparing for something harder, to be seen. They paint but not to hide. They paint to become. Elena, the bearded lady, lines her eyes with kohl so dark it swallows the color of her irises. Her sequined gown hangs from a nail like a crucified queen. She smears rouge into the high bones of her cheeks like war paint. Her hands tremble until they don't. She hums a lullaby from a country she hasn't seen since she grew facial hair and stopped being someone's daughter. Sasha, the contortionist, wraps her joints in red silk. Not because it offers support, it doesn't, but because it reminds her that her body still belongs to her. She stands in silence. No breathing exercises, no mantras, just an extended stillness, like a blade waiting to be drawn. The painted man oils his tattoos, stories etched into flesh, fading around the edges. Each one is a place he's been, or a lie he told so often it became permanent. He talks to no one, just flexes each limb as if testing for ghosts. And in the far corner, under dim yellow bulbs and the hum of an old radio, Dogboy eats raw meat from a plate made of tin. No one questions it anymore. He eats alone, tail swaying. When I pass, he lets out a low growl. Not a warning, just a reminder. I am not yours. I choose this. Even the tent changes. It groans as the ropes tighten. The canvas expands like lungs being filled. The lights come on. Not the bright white of truth, but the golden hue of spectacle. They cast shadows that elongate the performers' shapes, turning bodies into monsters, myths, saints, and something far beyond flesh. The stage crew moves like ghosts, silent, precise, exhausted. They've heard every line, seen every stunt, predicted every accident. But they still flinch when the sword swallower begins her warm-up. Just in case this is the night she doesn't stop in time. And in the center of it all, me. I don't wear makeup. I don't perform. But I dress the part. A black jacket, old and frayed at the cuffs. A waistcoat stolen from a dead magician. A watch that hasn't worked since 1987, but which I still consult before every show, out of superstition more than need. I make the final rounds. The albino twins nod at me from their platform, one mouthing a prayer in broken French. The other sharpens a blade. The strongman lifts a barbell absent-mindedly while whispering something under his breath. Probably a joke, or a list of debts. The fire-eater sits cross-legged on the floor, staring into his fuel tin like it contains prophecy. I ask if he's ready. He nods, doesn't blink. Jeremiah, his bandaged hand now stuffed into a white glove, stands behind the curtain, still rehearsing his speech. The blood has dried. The shame hasn't. This moment right here is what separates the living from the dead. Because this is when they all ask themselves, will they love me? Will they pity me? Will they see the art or only the body? None of them say it out loud, but you can hear it in the scraping of boots against wood, in the hiss of gas lamps, in the tightening of corset strings and the rattling breath behind painted lips. This is the ritual, not the costumes, not the lights, but the act of facing the world with your worst visible, and still daring it to look away. I check the generator. I light the backup torches. I run my fingers along the edge of the ticket ledger like a priest reading confessions. Then I go to the center ring. I look up, to the rafters where the acrobat used to hang before her spine shattered. The rigging still sways. Her ghost still lingers. I walk the perimeter, touching each post, each rope, each anchor, whispering the same phrase I've whispered for years. Let them be seen. Let them survive it. The tent fills with tension. You can feel it in your teeth. It crackles through the air like electricity right before a storm. Outside, the audience begins to arrive. Their footsteps on the gravel. The crackling of popcorn. The giggles, the gasps. The drunk bravado of men pretending they're not here to be changed. They think they're safe. They think this is just entertainment. But no one walks out of our tent the same as they came in. Not if they're paying attention. Inside, we line up. Performers take their places like soldiers, not with courage, with duty, because this is war not against the audience, but against irrelevance. The tent master signals from the curtain. 3 knocks, 1 breath, silence, and then the lights rise. The show begins. Next, the performance. A full descent into spectacle, wonder, and horror, where gods, monsters, and miracles share the same stage for one night only. And targets. The audience gasps with every near miss. They love risk, but they love symmetry more. What they don't know is the twins haven't spoken to each other in 3 days. They've been fighting over a letter from a woman in Ohio who thinks she loves them both. And yet, in this moment, they are perfect. The knives land, the blindfold slips, the dance ends, and for 30 seconds, they look like they might even forgive each other. Next, Sasha the contortionist. She enters in silence. Her costume is minimalist, just gauze and tension. She bows slowly, then begins to fold. The audience watches in disbelief as her body bends backward into itself. Shoulders beneath hips, spine arched like a bow drawn to the point of shattering. Her ribs touch her thighs. Her arms wrap around her own ankles. For a moment, she becomes something less than human or more. A creature designed for grace under impossible angles. But she holds the final pose too long. Her breath hitches. Her eyes widen. And then she releases, not with pain but defiance. She stands, bows again, and limps off stage. Only I notice the way she presses her palm into her lower back. The audience will remember her as inhuman, but I know she'll be icing that spine for 2 hours just to breathe normally by morning. Now the lights go red. The music shifts, darker, heavier. The air itself feels denser. Jeremiah enters, his white glove now removed, revealing the bandaged hand from earlier. The spotlight focuses on his chest, bare, scarred, dotted with faded holes like the remains of a constellation. In his other hand, a hammer. He begins to speak. His voice cracks, low, unsure, but it grows as he steps toward the plank of wood at center stage. One by one, he drives nails into it, timed with his story. He talks about his mother, a Sunday school teacher who taught him pain was proof of love. About his time in the ward. About the quiet in his head that only broke when his skin did. Each word is punctuated by the crack of hammer on steel. And the audience listens. They don't cheer. They don't move. They absorb. Because for once, the spectacle isn't distraction. It's confession. He finishes with one final blow. The nail splits the wood. His hand trembles. He stands in silence, then bows, and leaves the stage without looking back. That moment, more than the fire, more than the knives, more than the freakish limbs, is what stays with them. The pain that wasn't acted. The truth that wasn't dressed in feathers. But the show continues. The bearded lady appears, sweeping through the tent like royalty. Her voice fills the space. A deep, operatic cry that echoes in the rafters. She sings in a language no one in the audience understands, but which brings some of them to tears. It's not the song. It's the authority. She owns her space. Her beard shines under the light. Her dress sparkles. And when she hits the final note, long, high, clear, the applause comes fast, wild, like a release from a spell, like guilt being washed away in thunder. Now comes Dog Boy. He bounds into the ring on all fours, dirty, growling, shirtless, scarred, snarling. Children scream. Adults laugh nervously. He chases his tail. He plays dead, then suddenly snaps to attention and mimics a full military salute. An absurd, perfect moment of satire. The crowd doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. That's his genius. He is parody and tragedy in equal measure. And finally, the fire eater enters. He says nothing. He carries 2 torches, one for each lung. He lights his fuel, takes a breath, and the flames burst from his mouth like a dragon choking on scripture. He spins, dances. The fire leaps, curls, explodes into the air like a phoenix made of kerosene and desperation. The finale is dangerous. It always is. But tonight, the flame arcs a little too high. For 1 second, the edge of the curtain ignites, just a flicker. The crew moves fast. Blanket, water, smother. It's out before the audience even registers the danger. The fire eater bows, staggers, wipes blood from his lips, then raises one fist. The crowd goes feral. They're clapping, standing, whistling. They think it was part of the act, a special effect, something rehearsed. They don't know it was real, that he lost another layer of his throat just to make them believe. The curtain falls. The lights dim. The audience exits, buzzing, thrilled, disturbed, changed. Outside, they'll take selfies, eat funnel cake, and joke about how freaky it all was. Inside, we're already cleaning up the blood, sweat, and broken glass. And tomorrow, we'll do it all again. Next, the quiet after the storm, what happens after the show, when the costumes come off and the freaks become human again. The applause ends, and the quiet begins. Not a gentle quiet, not the peace of accomplishment or celebration. This silence is dense, presses against the ribs, wraps around the throat. It is the kind of silence that demands you reckon with everything you just survived. The audience leaves in waves, their voices echoing through the gravel lot outside. Laughter, debate, a few sobs from someone who didn't expect to feel so much. The distant roar of a generator hums through the night air. Our world, momentarily invaded by theirs, begins to close again. Inside, the tent is half shadow, half bloodstain. The lights buzz low, flickering like dying stars. The sawdust floor is streaked with sweat, spit, and kerosene. A forgotten shoe, a broken prop, a single earring lost in the frenzy. The signs of war. The performers emerge one by one, not with pride, not with adrenaline, but with the limp of those who've offered too much. Sasha is first to her corner, clutching her lower back, exhaling slowly as she peels off the gauze costume. Her fingers tremble as she unhooks her spine brace. She doesn't speak, just lies down on a mat near her cot and stares at the ceiling, mouth open, eyes vacant. Her chest rises and falls mechanical as if each breath is an act of will. Jeremiah sits near the back steps, a cigarette dangling from bloodied lips. He hasn't smoked in years, tonight he does. The plank he hammered into lies beside him, now broken clean through the center. He runs his hand along the splintered edge. Not in mourning, more like gratitude. The wood took more damage than he did. Barely. The bearded lady removes her wig. Not the beard, she never takes that off, but the towering red curls that frame her like a lioness. Without them, she looks small, older, tired in a way only women who've performed their whole lives understand. She whispers something in Russian and pours herself a shot of gin from a blue flask she keeps sewn into the hem of her corset. The strongman vomits behind a crate. The twins are already fighting again, this time about who missed their step. The mute one slams a tent pole with his fist. The manic one starts crying, muttering something about how no one truly claps for them, only at them. Dogboy curls up near the animal cages. He's chewing something that might have once been a glove. Someone covers him with a blanket. No one says a word. And the fire eater? He's in the back, shirt off, kneeling beside a bucket of ice. His lips are cracked. His throat is burned. He hums softly, something that sounds like an old sea shanty or a hymn. He doesn't look up when I approach. I sit beside him. "You hit the curtain," I say. He nods. "It wasn't part of the act." Another nod. "You okay?" He shrugs, then finally speaks. "They thought it was magic." That's all he says. And maybe that's all that needs to be said. Because that's the game, isn't it? Make them think it's magic. Make them believe the pain is illusion, the deformity is performance, the risk is rehearsed, that we are invulnerable, divine, untouchable, but backstage tells the truth. Here, corsets are peeled off with wincing groans. Fake limbs are stored beside real ones. Scars are cleaned, joints are reset, and silence stretches between us like a second skin. I make my rounds again, not as a boss, not even as a man, just as a presence. A quiet check-in with each of them. They nod at me, some shake my hand, some pretend not to notice me at all. But their eyes soften just slightly. That's how I know they're still with me. There's no celebration, no curtain call, just survival. And that's enough. In the dressing tent, the mirrors are fogged, the bulbs flickering, the makeup melting down painted faces. A contortionist uses cold cream to remove the last of her stage mask. A tattooed performer scrubs at a new ink line that blurred mid-performance. No one speaks loudly. It's like being in church after everyone's confessed their sins and is too tired to leave the pew. I return to my wagon, sit down, open my ledger. Not the financial one, the other. The one where I keep notes on them. Not their earnings. Not their contracts. Their hearts. Tonight I add, Sasha bent too far. Monitor spine. Remove splits from next performance. Jeremiah needs smaller nails. Schedule talk. Reinforce he's not his act. Fire eater, new burn. Reinforce curtain spacing. Praise him in mourning. Elena, give her Friday solo. She's fading. Needs spotlight. Twins, one's pulling away. Consider rotating act before one leaves. I close the book. Outside, the generators are dying. The air smells like ash and cheap bourbon. This is the part of the night where I let myself feel tired, where the illusion finally releases its grip, and I stop pretending I'm the ringmaster of anything more powerful than a pile of exhausted misfits held together with faith and duct tape. Tomorrow, the posters go up again. The flyers get stapled to telephone poles in towns that still believe in the impossible. The truck gets fueled. The props get rebuilt. And they'll come, the crowd, with their children, their curiosity, their judgment, their shame, and we'll welcome them, not because we love them, but because we need them, because in their eyes we are not outcasts. We are gods. Even gods need sleep, but not for long, because the curtain rises again in 16 hours. And the show, like hunger, like memory, like pain, never really ends. Next, into the night, the owner's solitude, memories, regrets, and why he stays even when everyone else eventually runs. Past midnight, the circus is dead. Not sleeping, just dead. There's a difference. The lights are off. The fire's extinguished. The crowd long gone. Their voices dissolved into memory. The tents ripple in the breeze like tired lungs. The only sound now is the occasional cough, a rat scuttling under a trailer, the metallic groan of something settling under its own weight. Most of the performers are asleep, or pretending to be. Some lie still in their bunks, eyes wide open, staring at the canvas ceiling. For them, the adrenaline hasn't left yet. It takes time, sometimes hours, sometimes days, sometimes it never leaves. I sit outside my wagon, coat draped over my shoulders, a bottle of rye on the step beside me. It's not cold, but I pretend it is. Gives me an excuse to shiver. This is my hour. The only time I allow myself the silence. No questions, no props, no illusions, just breath and guilt. People always ask, why do you stay? They assume it's about money, or addiction to power, or some voyeuristic fascination with deformity. The truth is simpler, much darker. I stay because I don't belong anywhere else. Out there, in the world beyond the tent stakes, I am nothing. Just a man with a past too strange to be forgiven, too quiet to be famous. Out there, I am forgettable. In here, I'm the keeper of myth, the architect of spectacle, the one person everyone needs, if only because I hold the keys to their cages. When I was younger, I tried to leave. Once, I got as far as a bus station in Kansas. Sat there for 3 hours watching people come and go. Businessmen, teens, mothers with screaming children. No one made eye contact. No one looked twice. It was the most invisible I'd ever felt. So I got back on the road. Found the caravan again before sunrise. They hadn't noticed I'd gone. But the dog boy barked once when I opened the curtain, and that was enough. That was his way of saying, "You're late." And I've been here ever since. This place is filled with ghosts, performers who couldn't go on, accidents, illness, broken hearts, a few who just walked into the woods one night and didn't come back. I remember all of them, keep their names in a box under my bed. Not a metaphor, a real box, labeled with initials, show names, dates. Sometimes I take it out and just hold it, like a weight I don't want to forget. There was once a boy named Milo. Born without arms, he learned to play piano with his feet. Better than most with hands. He joined us at 16. Stayed 3 seasons. Taught himself Beethoven. The crowd adored him. Then one night, he swallowed a bottle of drain cleaner. No note. No warning. I found him in his bunk, legs curled like he was mid-practice. His act was beautiful, but he hated the clapping. Said it sounded like people laughing with their hands. That's the part the audience never sees. They see the routine, the choreography, the spectacle, but they don't see the cost. Every night is a transaction, a piece of soul in exchange for 15 minutes of wonder. And when the soul runs out, that's when they leave, or vanish, or fall apart right in front of us. And I, the man with the books and the keys and the contracts, I watch them go. I mark the ledger. I pack up the costume, and I pretend the tent doesn't feel emptier. But it always does. There are photos inside my wagon. Old ones, faded Polaroids, yellowed faces, back when we still called ourselves a traveling curiosity exhibition. Before social media turned everyone into their own sideshow. One photo is of Etta, the girl with translucent skin. She's standing beside a carousel, half lit by the moon, hair glowing like spun sugar. That was taken the night before she disappeared. I keep it framed, not because I miss her, but because I still don't understand her. Some people leave the circus because they find a better life. Others leave because they don't want to be remembered by the version of themselves that made people stare. I wonder which one she was. I take another drink. The rye bites the back of my throat like an old friend with unfinished business. I stare into the distance, toward the dark tree-line just beyond the tents. We've buried 4 performers in those woods. No headstones, just initials carved into tree bark. It's not tradition, it's necessity. You move town to town, death follows. The world doesn't make room for slow funerals in a fast-moving show. But I remember all of them. Every contortionist who snapped. Every fire breather who inhaled too deep. Every escape artist who misjudged the lock. Every one of them who stood under the lights and gave everything they had to be loved just once by strangers. And I wonder, every single night, am I the villain for giving them the stage? Or the coward for never stepping on it myself? Sometimes I think about burning the whole thing down, selling the wagons, releasing the animals, paying out the contracts and vanishing into the world with a different name. But I never do, because no matter how much pain this place holds, no matter how many broken bodies and bruised hearts and whispered prayers, there's one thing that keeps me tied here like a nail in the spine. No one else gives them a stage. And if I leave, who will? So I stay. I finish my drink. I run my hand along the old wooden rail of my steps. The wood is warm, lived in, cracked but holding. Tomorrow I'll wake up to the sound of the generator, the smell of grease paint, the twins arguing again. And we'll do it all one more time. Not because it's glorious, not because it's beautiful, but because it's ours. Next, dawn returns, the cycle begins again, and what it means to survive another day in the last place on Earth that still sells wonder by the ticket. At 5:06 a.m., the crows come. They always do. 3 of them, black as spilled ink, circling the tent poles like they're drawn to ghosts. Maybe they are. They perch on the roof of the caravan and stare at me through the fogged window as I drink what's left of the rye, watered down now, a shadow of what it was. Like me, I haven't slept. Not really. I closed my eyes around 3, drifted off for 20 minutes, dreamt of applause turning into sirens, woke up sweating. The crows call once, harsh, unbothered. Then they leave. A reminder that something always watches this place from above. Something that isn't God. Something that doesn't blink. Outside, the world is still gray. That pre-dawn haze that makes everything feel suspended. Between shows, between lives, between failures, the first sound I hear is the generator coughing back to life. Then the groan of the trailer's steel door as someone stumbles out to pee behind the animal cages. Another day. I dress slowly. Everything aches. I've been doing this so long that I don't notice the pain unless I stop moving. So I don't stop. Coffee. Black. Burnt. Reheated from yesterday. I drink it like penance. I step outside and the air hits like memory. Sharp. Damp. Slightly sweet with rot. The strong man is already lifting crates. That's his ritual. Start the day with pain, he says. It makes the rest of the world easier to ignore. Sasha limps past me without a word. Her eyes half closed, headphones in. Music blasting from a decade that died before she was born. Her hair tied back. No makeup. Just bone and breath and silent determination. Jeremiah is still asleep on the bench behind the main tent, curled like a cat, hands still bandaged. I lay a blanket over him. He doesn't stir. The dog boy is awake, digging something in the gravel with his bare hands. Could be a bone. Could be a piece of last night's costume. Could be nothing at all. His shirt is inside out. He growls when I pass. It's a friendly growl. Elena's tent is silent. Curtains drawn. A do not disturb sign she made herself from a broken mirror shard. I'll bring her tea in an hour. She won't drink it, but she'll nod like she's grateful. The trucks are being checked. Tires kicked. Fuel measured. Routes discussed. We've got 2 more nights in this town. Then it's Ohio. A smaller crowd, cheaper liquor, but a decent lot behind the gas station where we can park without police interference. I walk the perimeter. Same as always. Pegs, ropes, rigging. My hands move without thinking. Muscle memory built over years of stitching disaster together with duct tape and borrowed hope. Everything's quiet, functional, barely, and for a second, just one sharp breath of a moment, I let myself believe we're okay. But then I see it. Poster, half-torn, fluttering from the main gate. It's us. Bold red letters. One night only, the world's last freak show. And under it, a photo of Elena from 5 years ago. Younger, brighter, angrier. And the word wonder stamped across her in gold. Someone wrote over it in black marker. Shame. I tear it down. Not because I care what they wrote, but because I can't bear the idea of Elena seeing it. I burn it in the barrel by the kitchen tent. Watch the paper curl. The ink melt. The shame turn to smoke. The sun breaks through the clouds at 6:22. A soft, indifferent light. And with it comes the smallest sound. Applause. One person. Slow. Mocking. I turn. It's the little boy from the gas station across the field. He came last night. Sat in the front row. Eyes wide. Didn't blink once. He claps, alone, standing in the dew-soaked grass with his jacket zipped up to his chin. He waves, then runs off. And I smile. Not because it's enough, but because it's something. By 7 o'clock, the performers begin to gather for morning brief. I stand in front of them the same way I have for years. Sasha is seated on a box, stretching slowly. The fire eater drinks tea through a straw. The twins aren't speaking. Elena finally emerges, hair down, eyes hollow, but alive. I open my notebook, start to read the rundown. Rehearsal times, prop repairs, personnel changes. Then I stop. I look at them not as acts, not as assets, but as survivors. Every single one of them could have vanished by now, disappeared into addiction, institutionalization, poverty, suicide, but they're still here, bent, burned, bruised. But here, I close the notebook. Same show tonight, I say. Different ghosts. No one laughs, but Elena nods. Jeremiah smiles. The dog boy barks once. And that's enough, because that's what this is. Not a career, not a life, but a ritual. To wake, to dress the wounds, to tape the costume, to light the torches, to step into the ring and dare the world to stare, and to make it clap. One more time. Tomorrow we do it again. Not because we want to, not because we can, but because the world outside these tents still needs to believe in monsters. Because deep down, they're all afraid they're one of us. You've seen the lights, the pain, the strange poetry of life behind the curtain. You've met the performers, heard the ghosts, watched the owner try and hold together a world made of stitched-together broken people. If you made it this far, maybe you've realized something. This isn't a story about freaks. It's a story about being seen, and what it costs to stay visible. So if you found something here, a question, a chill, a memory, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share the show. The curtain never really closes, not as long as you're still watching. And if you ever pass a tattered tent outside a forgotten town, you'll know. The freaks are still inside, waiting,